What's up, cousins? This is definitely not the guy from Vikings here, and today I just wanted to respond to a question which I wasn't able to answer in full during my previous live stream Q&A because my internet has been really spotty lately. I have satellite internet and there's a new antenna in the mail, but my old antenna just really wasn't quite cutting it when the weather was crappy. Anyways, so the question was from Ashish Gautam, and basically the gist of Ashish's question is that he said, so when it comes to difficult problems in coding, um, Ashish gets messed up and loses focus and then kind of leaves it for later. And then he ends up sort of losing his motivation, and then he never ends up solving the problem. And then he says that he's ending up repeating this process quite frequently. So this is something I dealt with as a junior programmer, and so I do have some perspective, and I can suggest some ways to deal with this problem. Now, the truth is that the problem here is mostly psychological. So I'm going to try and keep this simple, but this is how I deal with and understand this problem myself. So I used to tie my self-esteem, my motivation, my feeling of, yes, I did it, to whether or not I solved a problem. Now, this is not a good idea overall. You can do that a little bit, but what I think is going to serve everyone listening to this for the most part better throughout your career and not just in programming is to understand that a good day of coding, a successful day of coding, is a day where you put forth effort. So my main suggestion here, and I'm going to kind of explore this in a few different ways, but what I suggest you do, Ashish, is the reason why you're losing your motivation and getting frustrated is you feel like you're failing. You feel like because you can't solve the problem, that's some kind of reflection on how good you are as a programmer, or maybe you're just upset because you're used to solving problems quickly and you've run into one which isn't, doesn't fit that category, doesn't fit your expectations. So if you can't change reality, the next best thing to do is to change your expectations about reality. Now, let me remind you, I've been writing code for nearly a decade, approaching 8 years now, and literally 5 days ago, I was stuck on the same problem in an algorithm I was writing. Admittedly, it was a really complicated algorithm for 5 days. So understand throughout your entire career, if you're learning and getting better and challenging yourself as a programmer, which are all qualities you will find in the best programmers, you need to understand that there's nothing actually wrong if you get stuck for 5 days or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, as long as you're putting forth the effort. Let me reiterate that. What we want to do is we want to anchor our motivation and our self-esteem not to whether or not we solve the problem, but to whether or not we put forth effort on a given day to solve the problem. The algorithm I had been working on, I put in about 7 to 8 hour days of coding just on that single algorithm. And yes, I had that frustration. I would get to the end of the day, and on a certain level, yes, I would be, I wouldn't exactly be happy that I didn't solve the problem. But at the same time, the reason why I didn't lose my motivation and didn't make a big story out of it is because I put forth the effort. Understand this. Your best effort has to be good enough by definition, because if you're not happy with your best efforts, if you're not happy just putting the time in, then you are going to drive yourself crazy. And you're going to have unrealistic expectations about how you should be. So that's basically my answer here, Ashish. In order to break this cycle, this repetitive cycle, well, there's two things. Over time, you will become better at solving problems faster. That does happen. But you need to understand that even like the geniuses out there, and I've met a few really smart programmers, and I don't use that word genius lightly. It takes a lot to impress me. Even those people get stuck on these kinds of problems. Even people, senior developers with decades of experience, they get stuck on problems. So what you need to understand is The only real problem for you when you get stuck is if you give up. So don't give up. I know that's a cliched answer here, but this is seriously how I psychologically frame things in order to deal with the negative emotions on not being able to solve a particular problem. So I realized that wasn't necessarily like a super practical thing, but I'm trying to give you what works for me in order to deal with this particular problem. So I hope it was useful for you. If you have everyone listening, if you have any questions, let me down in the comment section down below. And I'll try and answer them either in a Q&A or in one of these videos. And if you enjoyed this content, please do me a favor, hit the like button down below. Consider following me on your preferred social media networks, and I'll see you in the next video.